Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
We are here today to talk about my official, surprise game of 2020.
Yeah.
And that is 13 Sentinels.
I think it's so funny your individual novels now, but continue.
But I'm not. That's the weirdest thing.
Yes, you are.
No, it's like this and Danganronpa, which is why it shocked me that I loved this so much, because I've tried a
Sure.
couple other ones, and none of them, I make it like 5 hours, I'm like, I'm bored.
Sure.
This
okay,
one
that's
and
fair.
Danganronpa are the two where I'm like, these are the greatest games. I want more like this, but there's just nothing else quite like it.
Sure.
So Doug kind of split it a little bit and called it a visual novel. I'm going to push back a little bit on that because it's not quite a visual novel.
Mm-hmm.
There is some minor gameplay in this. So the way this game works is the central focus of it does feel very much like a visual novel. Where you're walking around as one of these 13 characters, 13 Sentinels, and you're walking around and you're kind of trying to figure out what's going on. There's some very, very light puzzle solving, emphasis on very light,
Yeah.
and there's some different directions you can go with it. But it really is a visual novel. But you're doing a lot of walking around and point and click adventure stuff where it's like, oh, I have to go and talk to this person before I can do that. The whole game, if you've played games, Quantic Dream games like Detroit, where you've got like a flow chart, this game has flow charts. You will see all of them as you naturally progress. But what will happen is, like, if you pick one of the characters, it will say, okay, you're starting in classroom 2B, and it'll give you 6 branches. And depending on who you talk to, different branches will open up. So the where I want to kind of go, okay, it's not quite the same as a normal visual novel, is this game has a lot of choice in how you progress through things, which initially made me super anxious because of the way that it does it. Because the game pretty much opens up and gives you, I don't remember, it's like 6 or 7 characters, and it's just like, all right, pick one.
Yeah.
And you pick one, it goes, the prologue of whoever you picked. And then you finish the prologue, and it's like, okay, we'll let you do one more piece of their story, and then, oh, nope, sorry, gated off. Pick a different character.
Jeez.
And all of these characters' stories intertwined the whole time. So some of them deal with one aspect of the story, some of them deal with another, some just feel like they're just completely irrelevant to anything that's ever happened in the rest of this game. But you get hooked on different parts of the story as you go along. So I guess the game really does focus on its story. So just to kind of give a brief idea, and I don't want to get too much into it just because this game has some of the best, like, oh shit, what the hell moments I've ever seen in a game, and they come like 1 an hour. They're constant.
Is that good? That seems
Yes,
like
it's amazing. Imagine like a very well written TV show where, like, before every commercial break even is like oh my god, I need to see what happens in 2.5 minutes. I don't care about this commercial. I need to see what happens, because they're so well written, and where they end, it's just like, it's never like a hard like cut. It's just always like the slow fade to black, and you're like, oh no, are we going somewhere? No. And then you see the screen, it's like, pa, and it goes, okay, to progress, please complete da-da-da-da-da.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, does it immediately undercut all those big moments? Because, like, I imagine if you got to, say, a big moment on character 3, do you even remember what that big moment is by the time you get back around to character 3?
So they're all intertwined in different ways. Initially, that was my fear. That's where I got anxious, was like, I'm not going to remember, like, what's happening with this dude after I go through and play the other 12. The first, I would say 50% is very loose like that, where you're just kind of getting these different aspects of the story. The game focuses on time travel, so it's set every 40 years, and I don't want to say I don't want to say specific dates, just because some of them are spoilery that pop up later on. But
is it set? Is it set in like Earth timeline? Is it Earth?
Yeah,
that we're on?
it's you're in Japan. You're in Japan.
Oh, okay, it is Japan. Okay.
Yeah. So you start in 1944. You see 1984. 1984 is where the majority of the game takes place. Then you've got 2024, 2064, and you're seeing these 40-year increments. So some characters are taking place here, some are taking place here, and each one kind of embodies a different sci-fi story.
Okay.
So, like, your 1944 character is seeing, like, giant robot mechs for some reason. And your 1984 character has, like, almost an E.T. type story with this little alien dude. That's and fun, like some of the more overarching like characters that are really pushing the story forward have much more in this time travel aspect. And honestly, by the end of this game, if there is a sci-fi movie, book, TV show that you can think of, they probably in some way or another incorporate some element of that story into this game, and it works.
I was about that. My next question is that a mess? That just sounds like it could be an utter mess.
So it feels like I said, there's this 50% mark where once you hit 50% in the story, it really starts gating you specifically to certain characters.
Oh, okay.
So like the first, I think it maybe took, I don't remember exactly how many hours, but the first half of the game feels very like I said, like I almost felt anxious, like, oh man, which one of these characters is going to connect to this, because I need to know more about this.
Sure.
I think this character's in the same timeline, so maybe they interact, so I'll pick that one. But by the time you get to 50%, what it'll do is say, okay, you need to get to this specific storyline with this character, or you need to have 80% of all character stories done before you can see anything with this dude.
Okay.
So like one of the guys you see really early, you play his prologue, and then it immediately is like, get 9 characters to 90%.
Oh jeez.
You can't do
it
a
just
thing.
kind of like making sure that like it seems like those blocks that are like making sure you have all the context going into this
Exactly.
next part of the story. Okay.
Exactly. So really what you're seeing in the first 50% of the game is just all of this setup, all of this build up, and it really does build this good mystery of like, how on earth are you going to connect this kind of like ET-ish story with this time travel story with these giant robots and kaiju?
Yeah.
Because the overarching story is kaiju show up, you have giant robots to fight them.
Yeah.
That is the overarching story, and they work everything else into that, and it fits so perfectly, and it really is incredible. The other part of the game is an RTS mode. So when you open the game up, when you go to the menu, you've got what's called Remembrance, which is your visual novel with some point and click and that kind of stuff.
And what percentage of the game would you say that makes up?
70.
Okay. Sounds like a visual novel. Continue. Keep going.
It is. It is a visual novel with some other stuff in it. The other 30% are these like, I'm going to say what feel like side battles for some time, but it kind of gives more context to the visual novel, because it's basically, as you're kind of progressing through, these work the same way, where we'll only let you do certain ones until you hit certain parts in the story. But this basically works like a very, very, very simple RTS. You get normally 6 Sentinels, which are your giant robot, and you basically just fight off a kaiju invasion before it gets to this terminal point.
Is it an RTS for like more like I'm thinking, is it RTS like StarCraft or an RTS like Fire Emblem?
More in line with Fire Emblem.
Okay.
There's no base building, nothing like that. It's literally you get your 6 robots, go fight the giant monsters.
Okay.
Everybody takes turns more tactically.
And are your 13 Sentinels, is that like those characters that you're playing as, or is that kind of okay?
So again, I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but initially I felt like what is this, like, you're just doing this so I know, like, oh cool, giant robots and monsters, that's fun, yay, okay, I'm watching this is fun, like, oh, you're giving me something to do in case I get bored with the story. But again, once you hit this one, I think was more around like the 80% mark, you're like, oh, I get it, I get what's happening, why I'm doing these side battles, this is really, really cool how this ties into the visual novel point and click stuff.
Okay.
The main thing with this game is just how incredible they managed 13 separate stories interwoven into one in these 2 gameplay modes, and just everything comes together so flawlessly.
I mean, I guess the is it kind of like the RTS battle? Does it just kind of like break up? Do you see it more as just like a key game component, or more just a way to break up the good part, which is the visual novel? Because sometimes, like, I think of like Ratchet and Clank games, like you have these shootery parts and they have like, okay, here's do a Clank puzzle for a bit. It just kind of break up that action. Actually, the action is like, that's the main thing. This is kind of thing just to break the main things are visual novel, or try to break it up with these RTS battles, so like, at least keep that part interesting.
As you play through, yes, it feels that way. Like, it's like you're just kind of giving me something else to do in case I'm sick of walking around and reading. I get it. Like, you're giving me something else, and it does initially gives a little bit more context to some of the story elements of like, okay, like, because you still do, when you're doing the RTS battles, you get the characters talking before and after these battles, like, oh, like such and such and such. So you see some of the interactions that you're hearing about in the remembrance portion. They're just around this battle more specifically. Again, a lot of stuff with this is hard to talk about, because it's one of those games too where, like, because it has those oh shit moments like so often, especially once you hit like the 50-80% mark, where like you're constantly like, that's what that is, that's who that is, that's why I don't want to give away too much, but by the end those battles have a much more bigger significance than you ever thought as you're playing through the initial part of the game, or at least for me.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Um,
It sounds. I mean, it sounds really cool. I guess actually, I got a really weird kind of quick question because I think one of the things that's like I really like about the Yakuza series is actually the translation. Does it have like good? I mean, when you think of like, it seems like it has good plot. Does it have like good writing and good characters, or is it more like the plot is the thing that's kind of carrying this thing forward, and the characters are okay? It's just like the things that they're doing, is that's the more interesting aspect.
to me, it was more the overall what's going on.
Okay.
Again, 13 separate protagonists, and that's not even counting like a couple of other major characters that show up. The game probably really has closer to like 17, 18 like
Jesus.
super important main characters. So
Okay.
with
Yeah.
that, obviously some of them you're like, oh god, I gotta go look at this guy look at a train for 20 minutes. Like, great, how fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other ones you're like really attached to, and there were a couple of points where it's like, ah, crap, like I really want to know what happens to this character, for one or two of them. But for the most part, for me, it was that overarching plot of going like, okay, like what's coming? How are these connected? What is I'm not even going to put a word there because it's going to give something away. But like, what are these things really meaning? How is this all connected?
Yeah. It sounds cool.
It's
I really
so
want to get this
cool.
for Switch. I don't know if I could stand in front of my PS4 reading a visual novel, but it sounds sick.
It is so good. Um, but yeah, just again, as you go through it, it fills in all of these details and has such like crazy details. And there's just a couple things where like when it happens, you're like, oh, that's so cool, that's so cool, and just I'm a huge sucker for that, and I think that's where part of this comes from too. Is like I'm a huge sucker for that like really interesting, unique sci-fi thing, and this does a couple of those, and it's just it was one of those games where I was just constantly like on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what was going on, and I don't feel like you get that too much in games.
Damn, that sounds really cool. Actually, I was kind of disappointed to begin. I was actually kind of disappointed when I heard the next Vanillaware game was a visual novel. But like the more
Yeah,
I hear, because I really like their action combat. Like I think their action
same.
combat's like amazing. So I was kind of disappointed here. It's like, oh, it's a visual novel. It's taking them 5 years to make or whatever.
Hmm.
But I love
And
that. I love the art design and stuff, and it seems like they've
oh
kept
yeah,
that intact at least.
yeah, and just again, and just walking around the different areas, um, because again, you're seeing like the 40s, the 80s, the near future. You're seeing all these different time periods. Everyone has like a really cool look to it. Everything just, I mean, Vanillaware is known for their style, and they just really do hammer home their style in this one. Um, and yeah, because that was my thought too. It's why it took me so long to get to this. I was like, I really like Vanillaware's games. I don't know if I got a visual novel in me right
Yeah, you
now.
definitely got to warm yourself up for certain genres.
Exactly. It's one of those where I think if you're in the right mindset, if you go in like visual novel, visual novel, visual novel, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how incredibly fun this game is and just how unique it is. But all right, we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to us wherever you're listening, and we will see you later.
Bye.